So today's lesson is on owners and stakeholders. So if you look at the past lessons, first we learned about the definitions of corporate governance. How different definitions have been evolved from different perspectives. Operational perspectives, societal perspectives, stakeholder perspectives. Likewise, there were a lot of definitions depending on different perspectives. And once we learned the definitions, we then learned about a lot on theoretical base aspects of corporate governance. Although corporate governance is not a theory, we learned that it has evolved based on a lot of fundamental theories. The corporate governance practices are built upon a lot of fundamental theories. So those some of the theories that we discussed was agency theory, stewardship theory, class hegemony, managerial hegemony, transaction cost theory, enlightened shareholder value theory. Likewise, lots of theories that have helped to evolve good governance practices in the industry. That was the last lesson that we did. So today we will be talking about owners and stakeholders, in particular consideration to shareholders and stakeholders. So the learning objectives of today's lesson is to understand the difference between shareholders and stakeholders. Now, if we take stakeholders, shareholders are also part of stakeholders. That you have to understand. Shareholder is also a stakeholder. But in discussions, we normally separate these two. We normally we talk separately about shareholders and we talk separately about stakeholders. I will tell you why the reason is later. There is a reason. However, shareholder is also a stakeholder. To be aware of the various different stakeholder groups. There are lots of stakeholder groups. Stakeholders, of course, we can categorize into many forms. It can be primary stakeholders, it can be secondary stakeholders, it can be internal stakeholders, external stakeholders. Likewise, we can have different forms, groups of stakeholders. So we'll see what they are. To have an overview of the way that stakeholder shareholders are provided for in various corporate governance codes. So I will let you know certain codes of corporate governance and how they have perceived uh, uh, the shareholders and stakeholders in terms of practicing good governance. Now there are different codes in corporate governance. For example, OECD code, Hampel code, King's code. Likewise, different codes are there. Even CA, Sri Lanka, we have a code, corporate governance code of best practices. So in each of these codes, in each of these codes, there is a provision for shareholders and stakeholders. And they have mentioned in different codes, there are different, I would say, different form of concentrations for shareholders and stakeholders. Shareholder, stakeholder කියන concentration එක code එකකින් code එකට වෙනස් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. For example, some of the codes, they might be considered about more of employees. And some of the codes, they could be considered about shareholder value. Likewise, codes, the way they have given weight to the shareholders and stakeholders can be different. So that we'll discuss different codes and how they are going to treat these two parties are. Then lastly, to understand the roles and roles that shareholders and stakeholders play in companies and the development of corporate governance. What is their roles are? Now, when we talk about roles, it is not only the role of these stakeholders, but we have to consider about their responsibilities as well. What is their role, and on the flip side, what is their responsibilities are. So read this slide. The term shareholders may seem quite straightforward, but shareholders may be individual, institutions, firms, or other entities that own shares in a company. In the UK and US, there is a predominance of institutional shareholders, for example, pension funds, insurance companies, and mutual funds. So, as I told you, now shareholder and stakeholder, I have taken these two terms separately. Shareholders are pretty straightforward. Those are the people who own shares in a company. But on the other hand, stakeholders are the people who have an interest in the activities of the company. So I told you, stakeholders are also shareholders, but we talk them separately. The reason is shareholders, when you look at them, they do two things. One is they invest in the company. Shareholders invest in the company. That is why they own shares. And the other one is not like other stakeholders. Shareholders are protected by many legal jurisdictions. Many legal jurisdictions, they are being protected. For example, by SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, investors are being protected. But you might tell why employees are protected from Employee Act. Consumers are protected from Consumers Act. Yes, that is true. But overall, the why we talk shareholders and stakeholders separately is in almost all the countries. In almost all the countries, that stakeholder group called shareholders, they are being protected. And also, other thing is they invest in companies' shares. Consumers do not invest, employees do not invest, managers do not invest, suppliers do not invest. But shareholders invest their money. That is why we have basically separated the terms shareholder and stakeholder. So have a look at this. So what are stakeholders? So I told you we can separate the stakeholder groups into many categories. So stakeholders are basically the groups of people who have an interest in business organization. Who have an interest. Why do they have an interest? Is because they are sometimes their actions can be impacted by the company's activities, or company can be impacted by their activities. two ways. I'm explaining why they have an interest, this point. Why they have an interest? Because two reasons. One reason is they can be impacted by the company's activities, or on the flip side, their activities, company can be impacted by their activity. So due to any of the forms, they have an interest. For example, consumers have an interest because whatever the product that the company is manufacturing will be consumed by the consumers. So consumers are impacted by the company's activity. So they are interested. That is one part. And also on the flip side, now there are lots of pressure groups. Okay, it can be a set of consumers, or it can be a set of trade employees or trade unions, pressure groups, environmental protectors. So pressure groups, they can be interested on companies' activities because they can put more pressure to the company, press the management to do certain things. They can press the management to do take environmental protective measures, or certain changes in their product portfolios. Different requirements will be there. So because of that reason, company will be interested in knowing what these pressure groups are up to. Media. Media is very keen on companies, how they are doing the operations. Are they being ethical? If not, they would be reporting in the news. The company is being impacted by the activities of media. The company is interested. So likewise, there are always two forms of interest. I hope you understand that. So stakeholders can be either seen external to the organization or internal to the organization. So if we take a look at internal stakeholders, they are basically those people who are inside the organization, that is owners, shareholders, managers, staff and employees, internal environment. External means outside of the organization. Pressure groups, government, consumers, suppliers, community, likewise. Internal and external. Internal means those people who have an interest in the company, who are inside of the organization. External is outside of the organization. So apart from this categorization, there is another categorization, that is primary and secondary. That is not given to you in the slides. The slide categorization is only internal and external. So apart from that, we can see primary and secondary. So primary means who are primary shareholders and who are secondary shareholders. Any one of you? Who are primary shareholders and who are secondary shareholders? Any answers from your side? Who do you think primary shareholders are? Sorry, who do you think primary stakeholders and who do you think secondary stakeholders are? No one? Primary stakeholders are people who have a direct contact, yes. Then though, can you put some example? Who are the people who have a direct contact? Primary stakeholders are basically the shareholders. Primary stakeholders are basically the shareholders. Whereas secondary stakeholders are, you can take all of them. Managers, suppliers, consumers. That is basically how you define primary and secondary. That is one way of categorization. Primary, shareholders, secondary, all the other stakeholder groups, that is managers, suppliers, customers. So how I categorize that is based on certain characteristics. Now I can separate my shareholder group from rest of the stakeholder group due to certain characteristics. What are those characteristics? I can easily separate my shareholder from as primary, and I can categorize all the other stakeholders as secondary due to some characteristics of shareholders. What are those? Things that primary shareholders have and things that secondary shareholders does not have. Power and interest, yes. Secondary shareholders, if you see, they have no financial stake. They have no ownership. Managers, customers, employees, pressure groups, suppliers, they do not have any financial stake. And they do not have no right at corporate governance at the AGM. No right. They do not have any right at the AGM. In the AGM, they do not have any right. And also, no reporting right. They are to report. They have no reporting right. By shareholders, they have a reporting right. They can ask for report. They can report anything. So because of these reasons, I can easily categorize my shareholder as primary and other stakeholders as secondary. Again, because secondary shareholders, no financial right, no right in the AGM, no reporting right. Those are the common things. So moving forward, internal stakeholders are those who are members of the business organization. Members. That is, I already told within the organization who the members are. But sometimes groups can be both internal and external stakeholders. Can you give me an example for internal and external stakeholders? That particular group can be taken as internal and also external. What are the examples? Internal means those people inside the organization. But sometimes internal stakeholders can be external stakeholders as well. Can you give some examples? I think a good example is the customers. Yes. Employee, if we take a person, it can be an employee as well as it can be a customer. If it is an employee, on that base they are internal. If it is customers, on that base they are external. Employees who are customers, exactly. That is one fine example. So this is further elaborated. Internal and external stakeholders. See, managers and owners are the basic internal ones. All the others are, we can take external, and sometimes they are internal as well. So this diagram is basically given to you to understand different stakeholder groups. So characteristic of stakeholders. So I think this is already known to you, but I have put some points. So I am not going to illustrate point by point because these things you have already learned. Owners and shareholders. What are those? So owners and shareholders are basically people who have provided money. So when we take the stakeholders, we are talking always about the interest. Okay, so they have a role to play and also a responsibility. So what is their role and what is their responsibility? So in terms of good governance practices, we have to always talk about two ways. Now we are always talking about only one way. So if we take owners and shareholders, we always concentrate on shareholder. If it is so, we have to maximize the shareholders' wealth. We have to give the maximum to the owners. That is the responsibility of the company. But there is a role that owners and shareholders also have to play on the other side. අපි හැම වෙලේම කියන්නේ කම්පැනි පැත්තෙන් කරන්න ඕන දේ. නමුත් අනිත් පැත්තට ඔය කියන පාර්ශවයන් වලිනුත් කිසියම් දෙයක් අපිට සිද්ධ වෙන්න ඕනේ. They have a role to play. What is that? Company's responsibility is that. But what is the role that they have to play? What is the role? Now shareholders, they have the voting right. So company have understood the responsibility of shareholder value maximization. But on the other hand, their role is, shareholders' role is to use their voting right wisely. They have to, that is the only way that they can help the company, that they can use their voice. They have to voice up, they have to speak up. They have to use that right wisely for better decision making. If they think that the company is having bad practices, excessive director remunerations and the like, then they have to use their voting rights. That is their also responsibility to act responsibly. Their role is to act responsibly, use their voting right and be very vigilant about and have an eye open about how the company is doing their operations. Two ways we have to discuss. Then managers. This is what the managers have to do. Now managers, they have to organize, decision, plan, control. That is from the manager's side what they have to do. But from the company side, what is the responsibility in terms of good governance practices? Managers, they have to use their expertise, knowledge. They have also a role to play. These are the basic functions. Apart from that, they have to give their maximum to the organization. You have to use their expertise, knowledge as well. That is what they have to do. But on the other hand, what the company has to do for the manager? Any answers? Exactly. Career growth, likewise. Many companies also having a responsibility on look after the manager, give you a good remuneration package to protect their career, to have a good career growth, to give them proper training, to have a good succession planning. The company have to show the managers their career growth, their career progression, what prospect that they have inside the company. That is company's role. And manager's role is doing all these functions of organizing, planning, and controlling. They have to give maximum to the organization. They have to use their expertise, knowledge. That is their responsibility. So I'm quickly rushing through this because these things you normal day-to-day discuss things. Then employee and staffs. Employee also has a duty. What is their duty? They have to give maximum for the pay that they have. They have to be concerned about the activities of the company. And they have to give their expertise, knowledge. And on the other hand, company have to pay them good salary, give them proper training, a salary for the skill, for the qualification that they have. That part company also have to do. What the employees have to do and what the company have to do. Then customers. What does the customers do? What does the firms do and what does the customer should do? Customers, first we talk about the firms. What does the firm should do? Firm have to provide them the best product at an affordable price and they have to give good quality products. That is what the customers are expecting from the company. But on the other hand, what does the customers has to do? Customers තියෙන role එකක් play කරන්න. What is those? I think there's something wrong with the slide sharing. No? Wait. So what does the customers do? customers will have to give feedback for the products that they have. Provide feedbacks for improvements. It can be good feedback, it can be bad feedback, and also if they love the product, love the service, company is expecting customer loyalty as well. If the company can give the best for the customer, the quality product, that is their responsibility. And on the other hand, customer have a responsibility of being loyal and giving good feedback for improvement. Then suppliers, this is also a two-way process. What does the suppliers want? From the company's side, company has a responsibility towards suppliers and supplier has a responsibility towards the company. What is that? Suppliers has a role to play to give the company the best products at an affordable price. And what are the other things? And they are expecting, on the other hand, they are expecting a long-term relationship from the company, and also they are expecting to maximize their profits through the connections with the company. Long-term relationships, long-term contracts, timely payments, they are expecting. And company is expecting quality products, long-term relationships at an affordable price, timely products. එකපාර අවුරුද්දක් විතර සප්ලයි කරගෙන ගිහලා එකපාරටම සප්ලයි නැති වෙනවා නම් කම්පැනි එකට ආස නැහැ. Company is expecting that. And supplier is also expecting long-term relationship, on-time payments, trust. That is what the suppliers are expecting. Then community. Can you tell me what are the expectations of the community are? What does the firm expect from the community? And what does the community expect from the firm? So a firm can expect from the community their support, employment, customers, a good customer base, a good employee base, their support, environmental support. They would be expecting, company would be expecting from the community. And also the community would be expecting from the company. Again, they can be expecting employment opportunities, good products and services in the local area, two-way expectations. Smooth operation, CSR, social welfare, yes, you have a lot. Then government. What are the expectations of the government? Company is expecting from the government their support, funds, tax releases, different laws and regulations, protection. Those are what companies expecting from the government. Funds, protection, laws and regulations, tax benefits. But on the other hand, what does the government expect from the company? Compliance, on pay of tax, tax giving, compliance, tax and other government related fees. And government also can be expecting employment opportunities at the company. So when we talk about the stakeholders, always remember, do not talk about only one aspect. There are always two-way responsibilities and roles and responsibilities. Even if it's a customer, even if it's the employee, we always talk about only one aspect. Talk about the other aspect as well. It is giving and receiving. Two-way is one party is giving and the other party should be receiving. So giving end and receiving end, there are two separate roles. Any questions? So in your assignment as well, you can identify your stakeholders. It might not have all these 7 stakeholders that I discussed. These are not only the only stakeholders, there are lots of stakeholders. Pressure groups are there, media are there, international agencies are there, any stakeholder groups. So in your assignment, you have to identify the basic stakeholder groups that is vital for your company. ඔගොල්ලෝගේ company එකට අදාළ වෙන stakeholder groups ටික ඔගොල්ලෝ identify කරගන්න ඕනේ. And you have to see how the company is treating to those stakeholders and how they are treating towards the company. For example, employees. So in your annual reports, you will have a good separate section for employees. How the company is treating to the employees, workshops, training and everything. So in your report, you have to mention those. And also how employees are treating to the company. Maybe you can interview 1 to 3 employees. If interviewing is not possible, through email also you can get their comments. Or even reading annual reports and other press releases, you will get an idea how the employees are treating to the company. And even for the community, how the company is treating to the community and what are the community expectations are that is specific to your company in the assignment. So this is one more element. Now you all can start it. Now throughout the assignment, now first introductory part, how the corporate governance philosophies and how the company define corporate governance, that you all can do. And I hope that you have finished those. මේ වෙද්දි ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඒ ටික ඉවරයි කියලා මම හිතනවා. කම්පැනි corporate governance කියන එක define කරන්නේ මොන ආකාරයකද? ඒගොල්ලෝගේ perspective එක කොහොමද? ඒගොල්ලෝගේ evolve වෙලා තියෙන්නේ කොහොමද? ඒගොල්ලෝ corporate governance incorporate කරගෙන තියෙන්නේ මොන ආකාරයකද කියන ටික ඔයගොල්ලෝ මේ වෙද්දි ඉවර වෙලා තියෙනවා. මොකද අපි ඒව කතා කරලා ඉවරයි. දැන් ඔයගොල්ලන්ට stakeholders ලගේ part එක ඉවර කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙනවා. company කවුද stakeholders ලා ඉන්නේ? customers, employees. ඒගොල්ලෝ මොනවද company එකට කරන්නේ? company ඒගොල්ලන්ට මොනවද කරන්නේ? ඒ ගැන ඔයගොල්ලෝ in detail කතා කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙලා තියෙන්න ඕනේ. And board structures we discuss. Executive board the mix එකක්ද, non executive board එකක්ද, ඒවැ තියෙන advantages, disadvantages, ඒ parts ටික දැන් ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඉවර ඇති කියලා මම හිතනවා. I am assuming that you all have finished. So when I am asked to report your progress, you should be able to report that. What we have done in the lecture, now I hope you have finished in the assignment as well. Any questions? So this slide is quite important. I told you there are different codes that have guided the treatment of shareholders and stakeholder interests. Now we should have some guidance how to treat these stakeholders and shareholders. Now these are certain codes, famous codes that have taken, which have mentioned specific provisions, for shareholders and stakeholders. See the first one, OECD, Organization for Economic and Cooperative Development, OECD. So in their code, they have mentioned companies should meet long-term shareholder value. So when they are talking about stakeholders, they have a more focus on increasing long-term shareholder value. Now, when we talk about stakeholders, I told you different codes, different countries will have different importance in stakeholders. One company or one country will focus more about employees, and the other companies will have more about customers or shareholders. Now, say for example, countries like Japan, their focus is more on employees. But a country like Sri Lanka, what our focus? Our focus is more on shareholders. So that is likewise, it can differ. So this is code. This code also more focus is on long-term shareholder value creation. However, they also mentioned other non-financial objectives are also to be met. You have to meet other non-financial objectives. Financial objective is long-term shareholder value creation. That is the basic. In achieving that, they are asking not to forget other non-financial objectives. Likewise, customer satisfaction, employee protection, environmental protection, research development, non-financial objectives. So RSA Tomorrow's company, that is Royal Society of Arts. Royal Society of Arts. They are in their code, they have mentioned that stakeholders are interdependent. They have mentioned that stakeholders are interdependent. That is, they are connected one to one. Employees, customers, suppliers, everyone is connected. Interdependent. If employees are happy only, customers will be happy, isn't it? Say for example, a service organization, if the employees are not happy, that is the people who provide service, if they are not happy, then consumers will also not happy. That's a basic, fine, good example for stakeholder interdependence. Say for instance, you go to McDonald's. So in McDonald's, they have a service staff. If the staff is very aggressive and if the staff is not very friendly, will you go to McDonald's again? No. Customers are also not satisfied. So all the stakeholders are interdependent. When the customers are happy, then the community will be happy. Likewise, interdependent. They also mention focus should be long-term stakeholders satisfaction and not short-term satisfaction. They also mention that our focus should be on long-term stakeholder satisfaction and not short-term stakeholder satisfaction. Herm's principles, that is one of the other parties who have guided on shareholders and stakeholder interests. Hermes is one of the largest institutional investors in UK. One of the largest institutional investors in UK is Hermes. Their perspective is quite a different one. They are telling, similar to the others, focus on long-term interest of the shareholders. They are telling to focus on the shareholders' long-term interest. That is, long-term shareholder value maximization should be the company's focus. Then what about other stakeholders? What do you think the recommendations are? Any answers? They are telling to focus on long-term shareholders. But what do you think about the other stakeholders? I will give you a small tip, that is, they are telling if you can concentrate on long-term shareholder value maximization, they are telling all the other stakeholders would also be satisfied. Do you agree with that? If you can focus on long-term interest of shareholders, they think all the other stakeholder interest would be met, would be satisfied. Do you agree? Those who have said yes, what is your reason? Those who have said no, what is your reason? Now their perspective, I told you, quite a different one. They are telling by focusing on long term, we can effectively manage relationship with employees, suppliers and customers. That is true. When we focus on long-term shareholder value maximization, we are not doing anything wrong that would deprive or that would harm the company's share value. If we can focus on long-term shareholder value creation, short-term value creation can be manipulated. All these frauds, all these collapses are due to what? Because of the short term. අපිට fraud එකක් කරන්න පුළුවන් short term. නමුත් long term base එකෙන් යනවා නම් share value creation is gradual. In the long term only shareholder value creation would be there. Short term benefits වෙන්නේ නැහැ. long term එකේ නම් benefits ගන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ වර්තමානයේ අපි අපේ other interested parties effectively manage කරන්න ඕනේ. We have to manage all the relationships that we have effectively. We have to manage our employees, suppliers, customers, the relationship more effectively. Otherwise, you cannot create value. If we disappoint the employees, we cannot create value. If we are not behaving ethically, we are harming the environment. Say, for example, we are putting all our wastewater to the society. No proper waste disposal management system. Drainage system එකක් නැහැ. අපි waste water තනිකර company එළියට දානවා. අපේ focus එක long term shareholder value creation. Can we achieve it? No. If our focus is short term value creation, then yes, we might, because short term it's less than 1 year. Wastewater management අපිට වැඩි ගැටලුවක් නැහැ. Pressure groups වලට active වෙන්න තරම් කාලයක් නැහැ. Short term profits. Wastewater management system එකක් දානකොට it involves lots of cost. The cost එක අඩු කරගෙන profits වැඩි කරගෙන short term we can inflate the share price. But if we look at long term, no. If we are to consider long-term value creation, today you have to have a proper effective relationship management. We have to behave ethically. And also we have to consider about the environmental impact. That is what Hermes principles are telling. If you focus long-term shareholder value, then all the other stakeholders' needs will also be met. Can you all agree with me? Or are there still no's? You can argue. Any arguments? There's an exact answer. Long term can't be achieved without other stakeholder expectations. You have to focus long term. All the other expectations are automatically achieved. Then European Union Accounts Modernization Directives, that is also a report which says companies should report on financial as well as non-financial information. So financial information is for shareholders, non-financial information are focused on other stakeholder groups. Then we have Companies Act. In the Companies Act also it says a lot of provisions are there for employees, customers and environment. Similar to the other codes, it has financial and also non-financial performance, reporting of financial and non-financial performance. The King's report, that is a South African report. It has an integrated approach to corporate governance. Integrated approach to corporate governance. Integrated means a holistic view, no? Take into account various stakeholder groups. Integrate. Everyone is connected. Don't isolate. Don't look at only shareholders. Don't look at only employees. Take everyone into one basket and treat. You have to consider all of them. Integrated approach. You have to take into account various stakeholder groups. So in UK and US, emphasis on relationship between directors and shareholders. In Germany, emphasis on stakeholders and employees. In Japan, employees. So I told you, from country to country, from code to code, concentration is different. Japan, employees. Germany, employees. US and UK, shareholders and directors. What about Sri Lanka? What do you think, Sri Lanka? Whom do we emphasize more on relationship? අපි කාටද ලොකු ප්‍රොටෙක්ෂන් එකක් දීලා තියෙන්නේ companies වල? Shareholders. I also think it's shareholders because employees not really. Japan, yes, employees. Because Japan, they have this employee citizenship. Employee citizenship is, now when they recruit in the company, they recruit the employees at very young age. ගොඩාක් තරුණ වයසින් ඒගොල්ලෝ employees ලා අරගන්න. That is their company that they are going to serve for the rest of the lifetime. මුළු ජීවිත කාලෙම ඒගොල්ලෝ ඒ company තමයි ඉන්නේ. Employee citizenship. retire වෙන කාලයක් කල් company employees ලාව බලා ගන්නවා. එයාගේ career progression එක දෙනවා. So company employees වෙන කෙනෙක් වෙන තැනකට යන්න උවමනාවක් එන්නේ නැහැ. That is the Japanese culture. They treat their employees first. But in Sri Lanka, I don't think that much of concentration is given to employees. I also believe our concentration more is on shareholders, their protection. So it can differ from company to company, and also from cultural differences also impact culture to culture. So that is the part of shareholders and stakeholders. I want all of you to finish stakeholder part today itself in your assignment. Identify who your stakeholders are, basic stakeholders, and see what their roles and responsibilities have been. How company is treating your stakeholders and how stakeholders treating the company. So if you can take, now say for example, you might also have seen on this Corona period where we had this lockdown, there was a good name that Munchie gained. Munchie Ceylon Biscuits Limited, they gained a good name from the employees. Can anyone of you explain? Did you all observe that? Did you all observe? Now, in almost all the companies, they had a lot of company layoffs. They cut down employees. And some companies, they did not pay bonus. Some companies, they cut down salaries. So for the employees part, there were lots of bad things happened throughout this period. But Munshi gained a good name because even the employees, if you see in social media also, even the employees have given a good name for the company, a good marketing, a good reputation. They go to their website, they have this video. I remember it was shared in social media as well. The slogan was uh, වැඩ කරන්න හිතන තැන. Oh, වැඩ. Oh, ඒ වගේ මොකක් හරි. Something like this. Like that. වැඩ කරන්න හිතන තැනක් වගේ ඒ වගේ නිකන් අර employees, something that imply that employees are loving this. So all these indicate what? How the employees perceive the company. වැඩ කරන්න හිතන තැනක් අපිට මතක හැටියට. So they have given the employees their pay, their salary, their bonus, their promotions. That is what the employees are expecting. And company is expecting a good name for them there from the employees as well. So I think that is also given. Employees are recommending the company to everyone. They are appreciating the company. They are giving the best effort to the company. They are giving 100% to the company's operation, effort to the company. So that is what it really should be. That is one of the fine example I saw during these last few periods that was rotated in social media. So you can, in your companies also, you can observe like things like that, how they are managing different stakeholder groups. And also many companies have provisions for community services. Community services වල ගොඩාක් companies වල provisions තියෙනවා. In your assignments, in your company, see what the community projects are. So since I talk about Munshi, they were telling that they have a separate section for differently abled people. They are getting the employment from service fund. They have employees who are differently able for all these biscuit packaging, assembling things and everything, small things. They have recruited differently able people. That is also servicing to the community. Remember, it's a family owned business. So they are maximizing. Their objective is nothing but taking the maximum profit. But still, remember, they are being good to the stakeholders as well. So maybe what we have discussed, long-term profit, long-term value creation, and in having the mission of long-term value creation, they are handling the short-term stakeholders nicely. It can be the case. I do not know. I think some of you all can do it in the assignment as well. I don't know whether you all already have taken that company. That company can be a good opportunity for you all to look into. I don't know what the issues are, corporate governance issues are, but on the looks of it, it sounds good. There can be a few other companies as well that you can think about. Right. Now we'll start on family-owned firms. Small lesson. So I have already give you a good example of a family-owned firm, that is Learn Discuss Limited, Maliban. Any other companies that you can think of about on family-owned firms? You can mention, now I'm answering this question in the chat. You can mention both positive and negative, doesn't matter. Corporate governance is about good practices, but if you can highlight negative things, and then you can recommend good practices, positive things. You mentioned the negative things that is happening in the company as the areas that you have found out. Those are your findings. Then on the recommendations, you can give recommendations to overcome those negative things. That is okay. So family-owned business, basically the ownership structure, either it is a family-owned business or a public limited company, depends on the legal system a of an of a country. It is inspired by the legal system. Incorporation of corporations depends on the protection to the shareholders. If we have a poor legal protection is poor for the shareholders, then there is less likely that the country will have limited liability company. If the country is having a poor legal protection, on the law wise your protection is very poor, then there's unlikely people would invest in the companies. Then limited liability companies would be very limited. Then on such countries, there would be more conducive to have family firms. It would be more conducive to have family firms. Investors will be attracted only if their rights are protected. You have to protect the investor rights. Now, for example, in Sri Lanka, one of the objectives of Securities and Exchange Commission in Sri Lanka is protect the interest of investors. So that is they are on the regulatory aspect as well. Protect the interest of investors. So that is why we have lots of limited liability companies, because investor protection is there in our country. Because no one would be willing to put their money in a company if their interest is not protected, if there's no one to protect them if something happens. That background has to be set by the country itself. Country legal system itself, it has to be established. So what are the advantages and what are the disadvantages? Basic advantages are direction and management of the company is easy. Why? It's a family business. It's a business between mother, father and their sons and daughters. Or maybe it's a business between brothers and sisters. So direction and management is quite easy. They are close intimates. They are close family members. So they can talk offhand. They do not have to, pass memorandums and everything. They do not have to get approvals such in a public limited company. Public limited company වගේ approvals දාගෙන memos දාගෙන ඒකට වැඩ කරන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. සහෝදරයෝ ටිකගේ company එකක් නම් direction එක management එක ඒක සහෝදරයෝ අපි කරන දෙයක්. It's very easy. Operational wise, it's very easy. And less chance of agency problem. Why? Why do you think less chance of agency problem? Why do you think less chance of agency problem is? Less chance of agency problem? All are in one family. Owners and managers are not split. There's no split in ownership. Split in ownership and control is not there. Now, in public limited company, ownership and control is split. That is, there's a split. But in family business, there's no split. It's between one family. So you have less monitoring. And also no problem of information asymmetry. Now, this agency problem basically is due to the information asymmetry. What information directors have are not with the shareholders. What information shareholders have are not with the directors. Because of the information asymmetry, we have agency issues. But if it is a family business, brother, sister, mother, father, everyone has access to information. It's their business. So less monitoring. And there's no opportunistic behavior. No one is going to, act in an opportunistic manner. අවස්ථාවාදී විදිහට මිනිස්සු වැඩ කරන්නේ නැහැ. නමුත් if it's a public company, directors can be opportunistic. Shareholders can be opportunistic. There is there. But in a family business, it's a family. If we make profits, it's for all of us. If we make losses, it's for all of us. So there are less chance for opportunistic behavior. So there are less agency problem. Another good advantage is less driven by short-term market demand. We are not considering about short-term market demands. Why short-term market demands? Why short-term market demands? It's a family business, I told you, they want long-term survival. So they might not be inspired by short-term demands. They would be fully focused on long-term. That is the advantage. But on the other hand, a limited liability company, short-term focus would be there. Directors might want short-term profits. They can make profits and, go to another company easily. They want to continue for more generation. That is what I told you, long-term focus. Two parents might have started the business and they might want to give it to their children as well. As a children for their next generation. So on the flip side, what are the disadvantages? Tensions and divisions within the family. Family can have many problems. Say it's husband and wife, there can be conflicts. So family conflicts can lead to company conflicts as well. Problems within the family is anyway problems in the company as well. If they have certain disagreements in the family base, at house if they have different disagreements, that anger, that separation will be there in the organizational decision making as well. So that impact is there. And also the other bad thing is, since it's family, now there are no shareholder base. If there are shareholders, if this is a limited liability company, you cannot change your decisions the way you want. Other decisions, තමන්ට ඕන විදිහට decisions ගන්න බෑ. Say for instance, you are going for a new product. So if you are going for a new product, that has to be approved by the shareholders at the AGM as well. අලුත් business එකකට යනවා නම් ඒක AGM එකකින් shareholders approval it has to go like that because it has a direct impact on the share price. But it's a family firm, there's no such approval on the company. With the managers you might approve the project, but once you go home and you might have a talk at your dinner table or whatever, and next day you come to the office and say no, we are not going to do that. Those things can happen. Office එකේදී අපි approve වෙලා ඔක්කොම decision making වෙලා okay කරගෙන යන දෙයක් පහවදා ඇවිල්ලා ඒක එහෙම නෙමෙයි කියලා කියන්න පුළුවන්. No one can complain because it's their business, it's their family business. They can approve or they can disapprove anything, agree or disagree anything on that. That is there, that disadvantage is there. Conflicts can be there, and generational differences that can be seen in many of the organizations. Generational differences. Now if the mother and father started the business, then if it is hand over to the children, the way mother and father perceive things would not be the way children are perceiving. So once the children get into the business, they might, change the employees. They might send good employees home, good senior employees. They might ask them to go home and recruit new generation. Likewise, there can be differences. අම්මලා තාත්තලා හිතන විදිහයි ළමයි හිතන විදිහ අතර differences තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒකෙන් impact එකක් එන්න පුළුවන් company එකේ employees වලට, company එකේ operations වලට there can be an impact. And conflicts of holding of power. Now if it's a family business, now you say mother father started the business, then hand over to the children, and children might get married, and there is another party is getting involved, then they might be having different interests. Then siblings wise there can be conflicts, so it can be complex. Siblings conflict of power, separations of power, getting hold of power sometimes could be very controversial and very problematic, conflicting. So how we can overcome these issues? Now you say advantages are there, but there are lots of disadvantages which needs to be addressed. So one way of addressing all these possible issues, tensions, conflicts are introducing good governance practices to family business. How do we do so? So there are certain stages in family business. First stage is family assembly. Family assembly is where we have small number of people, say father, mother and 2 children. Those are family business, family assembly. On the dining table we can discuss things. This is the basic form of family business, family assembly. And things get expanded. Children can get married and new people can introduce, and likewise year on year, from generation to generation, families can expand. So then you will have some sort of a family council. Family council is where we have 30 to 40 members. It's a council. Father, mother, their brothers and sisters, and children's getting married and those parties involved, a lot of people are there. Family council, a little advanced now. When it is expanded to 40 to 50 members, 30 to 40, 40 to 50 members, there is a need of good governance practices at this point. Now, this is the basic structure. When the family is expanded to a form like this, 30 to 40 members, a family council, we have a need of proper governance structure because it's a considerable amount of people that needs to be managed. You have a considerable amount of people who needs to be managed. So then it is recommended at this point. At this point, it is recommended to incorporate corporate governance practices. So at once, rather than incorporating corporate governance practices, the practice had been to incorporate an advisory board. And එකපාරටම corporate governance කියන එක introduce කරන්න නැතුව corporate governance introduce කරන්න කලින් form එකක් තමයි advisory board එකක් family firms වලට introduce කිරීම. Once the family firms have expanded to 30, 40 members, there is a need of corporate governance. But rather than introducing governance at once, before that, companies have introduced advisory boards. What the role of advisory board is, they are, you have certain outside parties, it can be. You can invite some outside friend of you all, a well-known professional, to come and advise on firm's decision making, on firm's effectiveness and efficiency. Now, it's more or less, now we, on it is expanded to advisory board, it's not more, no more a family relationship. Now it's more of a business relationship. Now earlier it was always family, only the family members. But when the advisory board is, you are inviting some outsiders, a friend of yours, a professionals, to come and help you with the business. So now the family relationship is no more, but rather it's form of a business relationship. Now it's converted to more of a business relationship. So once that is also there, then gradually you can incorporate board of directors of the company. Then yes, corporate governance practices you can incorporate. You can take executive directors, non-executive directors, and all sort of practices that we talk about. You can remember, if it's a family business, it's typically board of directors are having majority executive directors. If it's a family business, typically they have a majority executive board of director board. Any questions? So what are the advantages? Advantages of formal governance structure. Defined structure with defined channels for decision making. That is just rather than having an informal structure. When you have, a chairman, a CEO, a director board, an executive committee to look after the operations, there is a structure and channel from chairman to board, from board to the managers. Likewise, there is a channel and we know there is a good reporting line. Governance structure is there. decision making is easy. If you have to make a decision, then there is a board to make a decision. If the board approves, then we can go ahead with that. Not like the previous way. Then sensitive areas can be tackled. Sensitive areas in the sense, say for instance, chairman is the father. Father got retired. Then there has to be someone else who has to take up the company. Then who is it? Is it the daughter? Is it the wife? Is it the son? Then there is a board to decide that. Succession planning. That is where you have to consider about succession planning. If the father is going to retire, then the immediate daughter or son has to be trained to take that position. Just because he is the daughter or he is the son, that's not allowed to take the business, because there is a board now. A proper structure is there. If you want to take the chairman's position, then you have to have a succession planning. You have to have that knowledge, that expertise that is there. Those are very sensitive areas, because no one is willing to give away your business. If it is a family business, they are likely that they would give it to someone else. So, but also when they are a formal structure, people doesn't like to give the business to an incapable person as well. Capability එකක් නැති මිනිස්සෙට business එක දෙන්න කැමතිත් නැහැ. ඒ වගේ sensitive areas proper governance structure එකක් තියෙනකොට tackle කරන්න හරි ලේසි. If the daughter is expecting to take the father's position, then train. Give her the expertise. Give her the knowledge. Give her proper training. Succession planning. Then interest from external shareholders. When you have a board, when you have a proper governance structure, we can easily attract external shareholders. Not to the contribution for the capital. Capital එකට අපිට සමහරක් විට contribution එක ඕනේ නැති වෙයි, since it's a family business. But we can take them as non-executive directors, appointment to non-executive directors and the share board of directors. Even in today's, in Sri Lanka also, family businesses, on the board of directors, it's not only the executive directors that is there. It has non-executive directors as well, who are outsiders. So that is, they are being attracted because these companies have a proper governance structure. So when you have a good governance structure, is to get the attraction from the external parties. If you do not have a structure, if your structures are very ad hoc, if you change time to time, then no one is willing to contribute. Have a proper structure, have a transparency, have accountability. Then all the stakeholders, everyone would be attracted to the company's operations. So any questions so far?